Hello everyone and welcome back to Timberborn. This is episode 9 of the Road to 1000 Beavers. In the last episode we got a good chunk of this mega reservoir set up. It looks like we have the rest of the dynamite placed over here and up here as well. And so the next step will be to detonate all of this and then finish this last level of levees that we have. And then as soon as we raise up these few buildings right here, then we can go ahead and start opening up the floodgates and let it start filling this whole area up. Although we do need to replace all of these platforms with some levees, we've been needing to get into here so that we can actually place the dynamite down. So let's go ahead and detonate this real quick. And then we can also go ahead and get rid of these. And then we can also go ahead and get rid of these stairs and platforms. And then as soon as they collect all this plus these few buildings right here, then we can go ahead and start putting in some levees right here. And so now we can finally start sealing off the levees over here. And it will probably be helpful to be able to work from this side as well, since we'll have to go ahead and raise all of this, and then we'll really have to wait until they finish building these ones in order to work their way around in this direction. Although what we can do is simply just put some platforms right on top of here, which will make this a little bit easier instead of having to remove all these platforms and overhangs. This will be a much easier solution. And so they did finish placing in the sluices over here, and so at this point I think it's safe to say that we can go ahead and open it. We'll be finishing constructing these levees pretty dang quickly, and I don't think the water is going to flood in that fast. So let's go ahead and start with just getting one of these dynamites detonated. And so now the water is going to be slowly filling this up. There is going to be a little bit of water diverging from this whole system, so we will probably go ahead and lower this since we do want to have water continue to flow through here. In fact, let's just go ahead and lower this completely for now. And so I think we've done just about all that we can without getting rid of this zipline station. So we'll go ahead and remove this now. And so we'll try and get this section completed first, because if they can, it'll make the rest of the build go a lot faster. And it does appear that the sluice is working over here. Let's go ahead and unpause this large water pump. And since we have so many vacant jobs, we can go ahead and pause some of the water pumpers over here. You can see the water has stopped flowing through here, and I think that is starting to impact some of these water wheels. Although it looks like there's a little bit of ebb and flow right now, so they're actually speeding up at the moment. So apparently all the water is being diverted into this system right now. Thankfully we do have these water wheels up top that we created in the last episode, plus we have a fair amount of windmills. So it does seem these gravity batteries are able to supplement it at the moment. In fact, we're actually charging up, which is fantastic, because I'm guessing we're going to have an event occur in the next couple days, and it seems like it's been a hot minute since we've had a bad tide, so that's probably what's going to be coming next. And it looks like this guy is no longer producing explosives. So we have maxed out. We definitely want to save up some more. Let's go ahead and figure out where we can get some more storage set up. In fact, while we have so much explosives and it seems like we have a decent amount of extract, I think it's high time that we go ahead and start lowering this section right here, now that we have excellent explosive production. So the first step is getting some paths set up here, since in my opinion it's easiest to work from the top down in terms of explosives. But we can go ahead and lower these bottom 3 layers, since those will only require placing down 1 round of explosives. But we do need to be careful that we don't accidentally separate the path over here, and we do need to actually connect it first. And somehow we have a drought approaching yet again. And look at that, they did finish constructing the levees over here. So now I think that this should be completely filled up. We have the mega pumper over here. It looks like it is... Wow, that is filled to the top. I mean, this thing works so efficiently that it just completely drains a good chunk of this. It might be worth expanding this into a larger pool so that it doesn't lower the water elevation super quickly. Although for now it seems like it's working. We can go ahead and set up some storages and then also some more water pumpers up here. And so we'll just need to make sure that we actually connect these in. And so then once we get both of these buildings up and running, I think we can go ahead and start retiring some of the water pumpers down here. For now we can just go ahead and pause these. We can just go ahead and set this lower sluice to be open. And then I think we can leave this upper sluice set to close above downstream depth of 1.5. And then we can also go ahead and raise this back up again, so we have a little bit of water that stays in here. And oh my goodness, they placed all these explosives down super quickly, so we can go ahead and detonate all of this first. And they have also made it to the top, so let's get some lumberjack flags up and running real quick. And so we are still pretty close to having maxed out our explosives, but with us placing some more down over here, I think that should be going through our stores fairly quickly. We are running a little bit low on extract. It might be worth getting another centrifuge set up. And I'm also seeing some beavers and bots sitting around. I don't think it's a production issue, I think it's a storage issue. So that is a good problem to have, but for now let's go ahead and pause some of these buildings. So every 0.33 hours they produce 5 water, and I believe the smaller water pumps produce 1 every 3 hours. So basically this is 15 water pumps before. So we have increased our water production facilities. It is starting to flood a little bit. I think we should go ahead and lower some more area over here. Although now I'm thinking about it, we might run into the problem of if the water elevation in the reservoir drops below a certain level, then it's going to start pulling water through here like it looks like it is. So let's go ahead and close this lower sluice, and then we can still have this one set to close above downstream depth of 1.5. So this basically will mean that the water level in this section won't flow into here once the reservoir level drops below 1, since these will remain closed. So we might not have needed to make these sluices, but it's not bad to have the option to open them up. So let's go ahead and detonate the rest of this dynamite over here. We can also probably change this to 0.5 as the threshold. Why is that still... Oh my gosh, there's so much water coming through here. Maybe we need to lower this even more. Let's go to 0.3. We don't really need to have it filled up to the top, and we certainly don't want to be having a lot of extra water spill out. And so the zip line over here is becoming very useful. The beavers are able to utilize that when placing all the dynamite down over here. And honestly, we've been making some pretty good progress right off the bat. We still have a fair amount of explosives. Let's actually go ahead and check in on the second district. They have no power. We did expand their production facilities in the last episode. So now we have a fair amount of buildings, but that also means that they are dependent on these water wheels. And so they don't have any way to get powered during the drought, unfortunately. But we can go ahead and start looking at getting some gravity batteries set up here. So let's go ahead and start making the trek upwards. And so we can go ahead and pause all of these bot jobs, and then we can put them in the builder's huts for now. In fact, we can also get another builder's hut set up. That way the bots can help contribute even more to this district. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out, and it does give me more motivation to continue making these videos for you guys. I've really enjoyed seeing all the comments that you guys have been leaving in the last few episodes. For example, one of you guys did the calculations on how many TNT blocks it would take to lower the entire map, which is something that I don't think we're going to be able to do in this series, but it was an interesting thought experiment. And so what we're going to do up here is lower this just a few levels. So we'll have it set to this level, and then we'll go ahead and place in a bunch of gravity batteries, and then we'll also dynamite out some holes for the gravity batteries to fall into, which will give them a lot more storage capacity. And I think we're going to actually go ahead and tunnel into this area. And in the last episode we did get the mine up and running. We currently have 8 bots in here. Let's go ahead and bump that up to 10. We'll just need to send a few more bots into this district. We can go ahead and use the automatic migration tools. So let's go ahead and bump that up to 18. But it does seem that we're hovering around 35 bots in this district. And considering we have so many bots who are just sitting around, let's go ahead and pause some of these buildings. And then finally make the plunge and switch some of these buildings to be bots. It is a whopping 5,000 science to switch the bot part factories to bots, but it is worth it. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we do want to make sure that we high prioritize these jobs, since we don't want any bots leaving these jobs for other jobs. And then once we get some more science, approximately 8.1 thousand more, then we can go ahead and switch the bot part factories into the bot jobs. Oh, it looks like I made a dynamite over here. So we're going to go ahead and wait on detonating this, since we would end up actually eliminating the path up here. And have we run out of bad water once again? Oh my gosh, we have just been flying through that. We need to go ahead and get some more storage set up. Looks like these beds are not being used, so we'll go ahead and remove them. And then we can go ahead and get a second storage facility set up for the bad water. I don't think these little ones are serving us any purpose right now. We have stored a little bit in there, but it's just not that much. In fact, we can go ahead and get even more storages set up. I think we'll stick for one additional storage over here, but then down the road we can go ahead and expand more in this direction if needed. It could be worth getting some bad water domes set up. Let's see, we have the bad water rig. Oh, so this is the folktales, and so we can actually just take bad water out of here directly. This is 40 every hour. That is quite a bit. And then we also have the bad water dome. And so I don't think that we'll use the bad water rig for both of them, since that would actually eliminate bad water coming out of here entirely. And we could definitely utilize the power production from the bad water. But let's see how much all this costs. This is 4,000. This is 2,000. Takes quite a few resources to get this constructed. 200 treated planks and 400 gears. It looks like we'd be able to manage that pretty easily, but right now it's just a science issue. And with all the things that we want to unlock, I think it's worth getting a second observatory up and running. So let's go ahead and get that going. And the drought has officially ended, so that is excellent news. We'll start getting some more water flowing through the system. In fact, I realized I had all this dynamite placed down. I never ended up detonating it. But with the water returning, this seems like the perfect opportunity to detonate it. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of wood over here, which is fantastic. Normally we're running pretty short on wood at this point, but it seems I may have learned my lesson from the One Pot Challenge series. If you guys have not checked out that series, go ahead and hop over there now. I'll provide a link in the description to that series. And that is basically the opposite of this one. We only have about 15 or 16 beavers in that world, and the vast majority of everyone working is the bots. And speaking of beavers, it looks like we have 205 adults, 13 children, which means 218 beavers in total. But I think we can go ahead and start bumping those numbers up a little bit. We do have some more spots for getting some houses set up. And so coming up here shortly, I am going to want to try and focus on making stuff a little bit more aesthetic, as I've mentioned in previous episodes. But I think we're getting to the point where we have enough resources, and really the last building that we need to create is the dirt excavator. And so to unlock that, that is 2,000 science. We have 3,000, but I did want to get the bad water domes up and running, or the bad water rigs I should say. But it does appear that the bad water has returned since the drought is over, so we don't necessarily need the bad water rig at the moment. So we can go ahead and hold off on that for now. We'll have the bots continue to fill up these storages. Now that there are 3 extra large water tanks set up, between the 3 they can hold 3,600. That is quite a bit. And they're already at 700, and it's only been a day and some change. They're going to fill this up pretty quickly. So maybe we preemptively get another one set up. It seems like they will fill all this up by the end of the wet season. So we'll go ahead and hold off on the bad water rig for now. And then let's look at getting the dirt excavator unlocked. Although, whoa, I am seeing some dying crops over here. It seems the water levels have receded enough that it actually impacted all of this. Are these? Okay, so these are dying soon. Oh man, the wheat all died out. You know, I think it's worth getting some fluid dumps set up over here. We do have them unlocked. Have we actually used them? I don't think we've actually used them in this first district. I know I wanted to set one up in the second district, but we also didn't get that set up. Oh, I just completely forgot about all the dynamite over here. Okay, I don't want to get too sidetracked. We will come back to this shortly, but first let's focus on the fluid dump over in the first district. We can go ahead and move these buildings, but first we'll go ahead and get the 3x3 grid set up over here. And then we can go ahead and get the farmhouse set up over here. We'll go ahead and remove this one for now. And then we'll place a second one down on top of this. And then we'll actually have a little notch where we go ahead and detonate this dynamite. And now we can have the fluid dump set up right here, which this will also expand our planting area a little bit. But I think we're going to want to have it end right around this area, since we'll want to have this section reserved for our storage and our production line, because we have a fair amount of buildings that we want to get set up over here. Explosives have dropped a little bit, so we'll go ahead and turn this back on. And then, oh my gosh, planks are so low. Let's go ahead and switch both of these back to bots, turn them back on once again. Looks like gears are still in a good spot, so we don't need to worry about that at the moment. And we did get the second observatory up and running. Excellent news. And then I was talking about a zipline station. Is there a chance we could fit one in somewhere? This might actually be the perfect spot. Unfortunately, I'm going to need to temporarily disconnect this one. And then we can also look at getting a second one set up over here. And then we can go ahead and get this one connected to the original zipline station. And they got the second one constructed over here. And then we could probably continue the zip lines over in this direction. In the long run, I think I do want to raise all of this up with some dirt blocks. And then we'll probably need to add in another irrigation pool like we did over here, so that we're not completely dependent on the water in this area to irrigate the land. And this is also not the most efficient system, since there's a lot of surface area and that allows a lot of evaporation. I think it'd be best to have this area irrigate some tree farms, since those are a little bit more hardy. They can survive days without water instead of hours. Like, I think the wheat dies after only 1 day, maybe 2 days. The sunflowers can last the longest, I believe. But either way, I will want to raise all of this up. And then back in the second district, there is a fair amount of dynamite placed down, but we do need to go ahead and turn these buildings back on, since we don't really need the bots sitting around in these builders' huts. We can go ahead and switch that back to beavers, and then turn on these bad water pumps as well. And it looks like they did finish constructing the tunnel under here. Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, they can't quite reach it all. We have to go ahead and extend the path over here. But after they finish that, then we should be in a good spot. We'll have to wait on them finishing the tunnel before we can put the power shafts down. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and start getting some more of the tunneling going down from here. Unfortunately, it's a little bit slower to vertically tunnel. It does look like overall we are running a little bit low on extract. I know a while ago I said I wanted to get another centrifuge set up. There has been so much going on. I feel like I've just been bouncing around the whole colony. But now that we actually have some space cleared out over here, we can go ahead and start thinking about getting some of those other buildings up and running. And so let's go ahead and start out with the dirt excavator. It is 2,000 science, but before we place it down, let's figure out how we're going to get the power over here. We have a few options. The one that I'm liking the most is going underground. I've really been enjoying the tunneling. And so what I think we should go ahead and do is get rid of this gear workshop and then place a few pieces of tunnel underneath. And so they won't be able to reach all of this. So we'll have to make sure that we place down some dynamite, and then we'll basically make some stairs down so then they can tunnel underneath. And look at that. So they have the majority of the tunneling set up over here. Although I guess we could just do dynamite. That'd actually be a lot easier. Doesn't require extract, so let's go ahead and get rid of this. But they did finish the tunneling over here. This last piece is going to be blasted out by dynamite from above. So we can go ahead and start getting some of the power shafts constructed now. And then hopping back to the first district of Beavaria, it looks like they have almost filled this large water tank with bad water. We're 5 days in, we have 980, so it seems like they slowed down just a little bit. So let's go ahead and set up another bad water pump. 6 days into the wet season, it looks like we have filled this reservoir back up once again. We have the 3 water pumpers that are working. It doesn't seem like any of them are sitting around. Oh, I guess we do have one guy sitting around. We do have some unemployed beavers in this district, and so we don't really need these inventors huts anymore. It would be a better use of their time to get the observatories up and running. So let's go ahead and get a third one set up. It seems like they're a little bit limited on centrifuge in this district, so let's go ahead and look at getting another one of those set up. We'll make sure this is super high priority, and then we'll have it set to bots as soon as they finish constructing it. Since it looks like we're doing great on scrap metal, we're nearly maxed out, so we'll pull a couple bots from these jobs, and then the extra extract that'll be helpful for getting the rest of this constructed over here. Overall, it seems like we're doing fantastic on resources. We aren't really running short on anything. Wood and water, some of the main ones, those have been fantastic. Food is also looking great. And then all the materials that we can produce, for the most part, are in a good spot. I think extract is the one we want to focus on at the moment. And soon we can go ahead and get another centrifuge set up over here. Looks like they did finish constructing the tunnel, so let's go ahead and get the power shaft set up. And we can also go ahead and replace this gear workshop over here. And now that we have the power connection set up over here, we can finally go ahead and place down the dirt excavator. And then getting this set to bots would be a good idea. I think that we should save up for getting the bots into the bot part factories first. That way we can keep producing bots at a much faster rate. And oh my goodness, they are dumping all the materials into here. They just completely maxed out the treated planks, gears. Look at that. Okay, they're finishing this so fast. This is one of the more dangerous jobs, so I will want to get this switched to bots as soon as we can. But we do have a fair amount of beavers that are unemployed, so it makes sense to have them working here for now. But we'll also need to make sure we get some storage set up. We can go ahead and unlock the underground pile. All of this is, well, look at that. So they changed the makeup of it. It costs a lot less, but it also has a much reduced capacity. I think it was 1800 before. But even the devs knew that that was a little bit too good, so they reduced it, and it seems that they reduced the price of it as well. But I will want to get some of these set up once we kind of know where we want to have our permanent storage, since all this stuff over here has just been temporary. And so we'll get a few more temporary storage set up for now. And so we can finally detonate all of the dynamite over here. And look at that, we just had our first beaver get injured from here. It is unfortunate, but we can also look at getting a centrifuge set up now. Ideally, I'd like to place it on top of one of the bot part factories, since it seems like that's a pretty good combo with 3 bot part factories, 2 bot part assemblers, and 1 centrifuge. So let's go ahead and actually do that. We'll have the first bot part factory, and then 1 centrifuge. We now have 3 observatories over here, and so we are racking up the science. 7.1 thousand. Seems like we'll be at 10,000 in no time. Uh-oh, it looks like we trapped a beaver over here. Let's go ahead and get rid of these stairs. And so it appears we have a bad tide approaching in just under 3 days, so we'll go ahead and get to see how the bad water diversion system works over here. Hopefully there will be minimal flooding, and we'll continue to get some power from this system. Looks like they have finished setting up the power shafts. We just need to get this last one placed down. And we have been a little bit unfair to these beavers. There are no zip lines going over in this direction, so we will need to set up an additional one. So we can go ahead and get that set up right now, and then let's make sure we have everything connected in. And now after they finish placing this last piece of dynamite, we will finally be able to get some gravity batteries set up, and then we'll also be able to set up some dynamite in order to expand the gravity battery's capacity. But since we have a bad tide approaching, we won't need to worry about that quite yet, since we'll have constant power during the bad tide. And that is where we're going to wrap up today's episode. As you can see, we have the reservoir that is fully functioning. We're collecting water from above and below, which was the whole point of this. And so now these water pumpers are just completely unnecessary. When we start the beautification process of this colony, we'll go ahead and remove these ones. And in the next episode, we will continue to lower this mountain over here. We've made some good progress. We are making our way across here, it seems. Looks like this lumberjack flag is now completely useless. And so I think maybe in the next episode or two, we can fully get rid of all of this over here, since we have a good amount of explosives and extract is increasing with the addition of this second centrifuge. In fact, it looks like there was a bot who was sitting around. We are probably getting a little bit close. Nope, I don't know why he was sitting around. We have plenty of storage for fitting more extract. So if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And with that, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.